Do you think that this world that we're in right now, it has improved people's livelihoods, has improved people's abilities to live, has improved people's health, life expectation, life quality? Or do you think that we are seeing the downturn? Are we seeing the complete opposite of what it was like to grow up in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, even the 2010s to a degree, halfway through? I just take a look around at all the people and I compare it to, like, for example, when I would go into a bar in the early 2000s versus going into a bar now. It's basically just you sit down at the bar stool, you order a beer, and usually the bartender's on her phone. Usually all the people beside you are on their phones, and usually people walking in are on their phones. Nobody's talking to each other. Everybody's messaging or watching or scrolling or watching social media or Instagram. And I start looking around at people and how are they building relationships like they used to? Do people know how to interact and talk to each other? Nowadays, because people don't know what it's like to have a serious conversation where you have points where you might disagree with each other, people don't realize that that's totally fine. It's okay to have a conversation with somebody, to debate a topic, and to not necessarily always be right. It's not necessarily about just being right all the time. I think people have lost their ability to have their own perspective, their own point of view. And that's really, when you watch my videos and you watch what I'm doing, I'm just giving you my point of view on things. If you agree with it, great. And if you don't agree with it, great. Either way, agree or disagree with me in the comments. But I look around at, for example, the smartphone. The smartphone's not here to free you, it's here to entrap you. I see that over time, I've seen a huge growing entitlement to things. So for example, when I was a kid, if I ran in a race and I lost the race, I never got a ribbon. I never got anything. If you got first, second, or third, you would get a trophy or you would get a ribbon. Nowadays, you're considered insensitive if you don't give everybody a participation award. But what does participation awards, what's that telling the youth these days? Is that telling the youth that even if you don't put in your best effort, if you don't put the work in, if you don't learn how to get good at something, that we're gonna reward you anyways? Is that how the world works? Does the world work like that? If you do a half-assed effort at something, at a job, at your studies, at learning how to play a guitar or instrument, at learning how to play a sport, is that going to reward you in the end, or is that going to harm you? Right? Is that going to hinder your ability to make a living? Is that going to hinder what you're able to do? And then you look at how quickly we are starting to lose our privacy. We're starting to slowly but surely lose our ability to say what's on our minds. Because nowadays, people have to basically censor themselves, and that's not how it's supposed to work. You're in a free country, in a free world, you're allowed to express your point of view. No matter if people agree with it or disagree with it, no matter if people are offended or if they aren't offended. And people are so scared nowadays to express their point of views that they suppress their point of view and they just conform to whatever the news says or whatever they see on social media or Twitter or on Instagram, to whatever the herd is saying is okay to say. And so people are naturally becoming conformists, and people are just scared to be themselves. Like, what happens in a world when individuality doesn't matter anymore, where the mob is what matters, where you have to be like everybody else or else? Do you want to live in a world where the beta males and the beta females, the people that conform and the people that just follow all the rules and that just do what's right according to society at that moment? Is that the kind of world you want to live in, where the people who have no original thought, no creativity, who don't challenge the norm, don't challenge themselves, don't challenge society, don't try to find ways to make it a more beautiful place to be. You want to be in a place like that? Are we leaving a place behind for our children's and for our future generations in which we're actually encouraging them to discover who they are and find out and become the person they're meant to be versus the person that they're being told that they have to be? Is that okay? I walk around, I literally walked into a Popeyes restaurant the other day. I was waiting in line with a girl, and all of a sudden, this lady walks into the Popeyes, jumps the counter, grabs a plastic bag, and just starts loading chicken into the plastic bag. And then once the plastic bag's been loaded up with chicken, like literally jumping the counter, yelling at the person, they turn around and then they just run out of the place with all the chicken. And I'm watching the security guard, and I'm watching the lady behind the counter, and I'm watching this girl cussing and swearing. And me and this girl are like, what's going on here? But that's the problem, is that people feel free, like this is okay to do in Canada now, where this is the norm. And people aren't even scared to openly rob other small businesses. And you're seeing this lawlessness and this sense of entitlement. Like, if I don't have the money for the food here, I'm entitled to steal it. And if I steal it, you don't have a right to stop me. I'm just noticing this is something that's happening much more frequently when I go into the LCBO, or when I go into, LCBO is like the liquor store here in Toronto, or in Canada, or in Ontario, I should say. And people just load up on booze and leave. And it's just, we're seeing this lawlessness creep in. And it's okay. And when you start losing the rule of law, and people feel like they can do anything that they want without consequence, and your formerly high trust society becomes a low trust society, everybody suffers. Everybody suffers in a low trust society. But nowadays, it just seems like there's no such thing as high trust society. Not in Canada really anymore. I'm not sure how it is in the States or England or in Australia or in Germany, but it just seems that people these days have no couth, no manners, none of that, no respect for each other. And the more that this is allowed to happen, the worse it gets. So I started thinking about, okay, so let's think about relationships before and after. So in the 70s, 80s, 90s, Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, boomers. When it comes to relationships, do you find that it's easier now to build relationships than it was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, or in the 2000s? You find that you have stronger, longer-term relationships than you were able to create in the 80s, 90s, etc. Even though we have smartphones where you can communicate and talk to people anytime you want, even though we have social media and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and we can talk to anybody we want whenever we want, are you finding that relationships are improving? Do you find that you're able to make better friends? Do you find that this generation's running around being able to create groups of friends like we did back in the day? Do you see that your healthcare is better? Do you find that your health in general is better nowadays? Do you see, when you look around at the elder generations and you look around at what's available for hospitals and for care, do you think that's improved in your country? What about the amount of money that you can earn? Are you able to earn more money nowadays? Or is it that you're able to earn more money, but it's worth less? And you find that your taxes, are they going down or are they going up? Is life more affordable now? You find that do you think the next generation is going to be able to buy a house, to be able to get a mortgage? Now, let's not get it twisted. Do you know what the definition of mortgage is? Mort in French means death. Gage in French means pledge. A mortgage means a death pledge. Pay till you die. That's what a mortgage is. So I'm not sure if I really believe in mortgages as much, but when you look at the average house price in the 70s and the 80s, even with higher interest rates, 70s, what was it, $5,000, $10,000 for a house? 80s, what was it, $50,000 for a house? Sure, you might have had higher interest rates, but think about it. My dad, for example, he raised 4 kids by himself on one salary, okay? He was a homeowner, he bought his house, he had a vehicle, and he kept food on the table for us, clothed us, you name it. Now, obviously, when we got older and we were able to work, we did. But he was able to raise a family of 4 comfortably. We weren't super rich or anything like that, but we had everything we needed. We had good food. My dad barbecued all the time. We had, everything you want, everything you could want, we had. Now, imagine yourself right now, if you had to raise 4 kids by yourself right now in this current society on one salary. Do you think that you would be able to do that, or how difficult would that be right now to do? So what about the government? Do we find that the government has improved? Have they become more involved in your life or less involved in your life? Are we leaving a better government for the people, for the next generation? What about the security, the police forces? Are we seeing that we have higher trust in them nowadays than we did in the 70s, 80s, and 90s? The medical industry, the doctors, do we have more trust in them now? Or do we have less trust in them now? When you look at the legal system, do you think the legal system has improved in the last 20 years, 30 years? Do we trust in lawyers, and do we trust in that? I don't know, man. It seems like on every level, things have deteriorated. Everything's more expensive, and the freedom that we once had to roam no longer exists. The ability to leave our doors open at our houses, that's over. So we no longer live, it seems, we're not leaving a higher trust society. We live in a low trust society now, where you can't even, in Toronto, you can't even leave your bike out for, 2-3 hours without somebody stealing it. You know what I mean? If I drop my phone somewhere, I've dropped my phone several times. People don't return the phone. Like, what are you going to do with it? No, they'd rather get $200 and ship it off somewhere, find somebody to sell it for parts or whatever the case may be. Every time I find a phone, I return the phone. But for the most part, if somebody finds a phone nowadays, they just steal it. Because that's just normal now. That's okay. So we look at, what about entertainment? Let's look at the entertainment industry. Are we finding that the music, and listen, I was born in the 80s. So I like the music from the 80s, from the 70s, from the 60s, from the 50s. I like that kind of music. I like the music from the 90s. I like the music from the early 2000s. So this is not a generational thing. I like my dad's music. I like so to the extent I like some of my grandfather's music. I like Elvis Presley. I like the Beatles. I like Chuck Berry. You know what I mean? But when we look at this generation, and then my dad, for example, he liked the bands that we listen to, like Nirvana's and that kind of stuff. He liked that, he liked that music. So there was not nearly as big of a generational gap as there is now. And we look at, has music gotten better? Has hip hop music gotten better? Has rock music gotten better? Has country music gotten better? Maybe country music it's still pretty good. I'm not sure. In America, you have to tell me, but I think country music's probably still decent from what I can, my brothers and my sister and my family loves country music still. So maybe country music hasn't completely fallen off yet. But for the most part, what about everything else? What about the movies? Have you noticed the movies have improved? Even though we have all this new technology, like when you watch a movie full of CGI versus watching like an old movie like Labyrinth with the puppets, or like Willy Wonka, the old Willy Wonka versus the new Willy Wonka, is the new Willy Wonka with all its with all its new technology, is it better than the old Willy Wonka? No way, man. No way. And you look at the news, you look at the media, do you think that we're leaving behind a better, more trusted media? Or are we just realizing that the media has always kind of misinformed us? Is that something that we've actually just never really picked up on before? Right? So is the media, are they more trustworthy? We look at the movies, the movie industry, the actors even. Like, are there even movie stars anymore? Who's the last movie star? Brad Pitt, maybe? Maybe Tom Cruise? But you look at it, you know? It all seems like, it seems like it's lost its heart and soul. What has improved? What have we improved? So we haven't improved living conditions. We haven't improved the cost of living. We haven't improved the medical industry. We haven't improved on entertainment. What have we improved on? Well, now we can watch crap anytime we want in our pockets because we have a smartphone. So if I want to pull my smartphone out right now and start gambling, I can. If I want to watch a YouTube video, I can. If I want to scroll on Instagram, I can. But like, is that an improvement? Whatever happened to having like lofty goals as a society, you know? Like Kennedy, he's like, we're gonna go to the moon, you know? That was a big goal. Now, I don't know, a lot of questions about that too, but you know what I mean? At least he put it out there. At least he had a big vision. People don't seem to have any visions for their lives anymore. People are just happy to pay taxes and punch in and punch out, and whatever happens, happens. And they just don't seem to care. People just don't seem to care as much. You know, we look at families, for example. Are families staying together? Divorce rates are up. You know, birth rates are down. Like, what's going on here? How is it that we've printed the most money in the history of Canada and the history of the United States, yet we can buy the least amount of stuff. We can't pay for anything. It's all super expensive, and we still have some of the highest taxes. But how is it that we've got all this extra money, and still it costs more and more and more to live? What's it going to cost in 10 years to fill your fridge, to fill your gas tank? Like, these are questions that people need to start asking themselves. And you start looking at the invisible tax of inflation. So if you left $1 million in your bank account 10 years ago, your buying power would be about 50% now. So that $1 million, you could have bought $1 million worth of stocks or investments. But now, it's because of inflation, that $1 million that was just sitting in the bank account is basically worth half. Like, what's going on here? And I find it interesting. Just the question, you know, is Instagram, is Facebook, is Twitter, are these things making our lives better? Has a smartphone improved our lives? I don't know. It seems to me that the world we grew up in, the old world versus this new world, in the old world where people actually valued having a good friend, people actually valued being honorable and loyal to each other and finding out and working together to accomplish things. You know, communities knew each other. You would come together and you would celebrate things. You would have community fairs in every neighborhood. I remember my grandmother, when I last saw her, she was telling me that back in the day they would have, every year in their little town, they would have a huge fair. Everybody would come together and they would do the jitterbug, is what she called it, and they would dance and they would, you know, come together as a community. They would have their community, whoever played music would come and play music. And then all the community would come together and they would sell, you know, barbecue corn. They would, you know, you come together as a community, as an individual community, and celebrate just having that wonderful existence together. Now, I think it's important to say this. Like, yes, I'm comparing the past to now. And I think what I'm trying to say here is that, yes, I do think that the smartphone and a lot of these things have taken away people's ambition to go out and hang out with each other. I do think that it's definitely stifled a lot of things. But that doesn't mean that we can't get back to being part of the community again. That doesn't mean that we can't do our best to find ways to limit the exposure of the smartphone, of Wi-Fi, of the internet, of staying at home and watching Netflix. You know, finding a way, how do we bring some of that old world that we know? Because if you're Gen X, if you're a millennial, if you're a boomer, maybe some of you guys in Gen Z, I don't know. But you know that old world existed, and you know the value in it. And I do think that us encouraging people to get out there and just to be around in the world and to do things outside and to put away their smartphones and just hang out with each other and exist and get to know each other and bond. Like, these are things we know, and we got to start thinking about ways. How do we bring that back? How do we bring back family dinners with no cell phones? That's one thing. Every family dinner, no cell phones. I don't know if people are doing that now, but for me, that's a number one. I won't sit at a family table with anybody's their cell phone out. No way. Tell me, man, have we improved the new world? This new technology-filled world. You know, I remember laughing back when I was a kid. I would see the Mennonites or the Hutterite community driving their horse and buggies. I'd be like, whoa, look at these people. These people are messed up, man. And meanwhile, they're not even looking at me. Now, maybe they are, but you know, I'm not saying to get back to the horse and buggy, but I'm saying that old world touch, that can't be lost. And that's something that our generation, Generation X, elder millennials, boomer generation, that's something that we know the value of. And I think that we got to find ways to encourage our generation of children, or to make sure not to forget that, even if that means, if you're a grandparent or if you're an uncle or an aunt, you know, like taking your nephew or your nieces out to do something, and, you know, with the request that the phone goes away, and just live in the moment together. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But I just thought I wanted to talk about this particular subject because I really don't think that the world that we're leaving behind now is better than the world that we actually came from. And one of the things I think we can do is start to live by example individually, and show people that going out for a walk and enjoying anything outside, it's good for you, man. It's good for the soul. You let me know. I'm Matt Ross. I'm the Known Wolf.